Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's November 14th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it looks like we're turning down here. It looks like we had kind of a reversal day off these highs. You can see we're way oversold again. That doesn't mean we can't correct a little bit and go higher still. You would think after coming off the midline that maybe our target was the upper trend line. However, we never got to the lower side either. So this is one of those deals where we could turn down before we go higher again. So it's hard to determine what's going to happen from here based on the way this thing is set up. So the one thing I can tell you is that we had this green channel working up and we got a break and a couple legs up to a new high now, and we're definitely oversold. So at the very least, we might see a day or two of correction at a minimum, but we also could see prices turn down and trend back down and test this midline again because we never tested the lower end of this channel. Now, does that mean we're reversing out of here and maybe we found the bottom? That's possible. Uh, but usually you'll go from the low to the high to the low, and we didn't quite get to the low here at all. So it's just really hard to determine what's happening here and how this is going to play out. But it looks like we could at least see a day or two of correction here just to take some of the overbought pressure off. Because this does look like a reversal day. We're very overbought here, way into overbought territory. So I'm thinking we're going to at least get a day or two of correction here. We'll see. I could be 100% wrong. There's nothing here that says, hey, we're certainly going lower. But just reading the tea leaves based on experience and why we use this chart and why we use this indicator here, it's just to give us clues to where prices are going. And short term, it definitely looks like we're probably going to get a day or two of correction here. So we'll see. I could be wrong. It's not. This is not real clear. This is like a very cloudy chart. It's not a real clear chart, if that makes sense to you. So because we didn't make the lows, so we may not make the highs. We might come up here, and if we do turn and go to the trend line, the fact that we didn't make the lows means we might overshoot it about that much before we turn down again and maybe try to make a new low. So it's really hard to determine here what's going on just now. But again, the way I'm going to leave it is it looks like we'll probably get a day or two of correction, and we'll see what tomorrow looks like. But anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart. It's mostly just kind of a choppy range day that closed downward. It looks like a reversal type day, really. So let's flip over there and go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day. Okay, and real quickly, I'm pretty much caught up on email, but I haven't read the forum at all today, and I didn't get to read it much last week, so I'm way behind, and I'm probably going to continue to be slow there, and I just hate it. But with all this going on, with my mom being in the hospital with having a stroke, I'm really pulled in a lot of different directions. Having to take care of her and take care of her. My dad passed away several years ago, so I'm not only having to take care of her, I'm having to take care of all her finances and just anything that people, just think of all the tasks you do every day, paying your bills and everything like that, and her animals. Well, I'm stuck taking care of all of that, so I'm really pulled in a lot of different directions until we figure out where we're going from here and how quickly she's going to either be on her feet or we put her somewhere where somebody helps. But I'm still going to be having to take care of um, a lot of her business for her. So anyway, I just ask you to bear with me. Continue to keep her and my family in your prayers. If you're religious and pray, I'd appreciate that. And just thanks for all the notes I've got and so forth. It's and all the people that have reached out to me, and I really appreciate it. So, but anyway, let's get to the chart. And again, I'm going to be slow on that forum, so just bear with me. But I'm trying to at least keep up with my email, and so far I'm doing a pretty good job at that. And I would ask you too, if you're sending me trading questions and things like that, try to hold those unless it's just have to send it to me, and I'll try to answer it. But most I would appreciate if you go to the forum for that. That's why we created it, to take some of that pressure off of me, because there's capable people in there that can answer 99.9% of the questions. So um, you can pretty much tell who they are if you're in there a lot, because I always say, hey, this person's answer is correct, and it's usually the same people, so you'll know who the people are. I'm not going to call any names, but there's people that are capable of answering just about every question in there. It doesn't have to be me. So anyway, let's get to the chart lesson. You can see we were in this range, and of course, once you break out of here and head higher, you'd look for a measured move, and we actually went a little bit further than that before we turned down, and it failed. And what it's probably is in the end, this is your range, and you can see how the midline fits across there. You get a failed breakout, and it turns down, and it just keeps going. It went right through the other side. So this is a real reversal. We ended on a real bearish note. Um, I mean, we didn't close on a very low, but from the high of the day, we closed almost very close, within 10 or 15 points here. It looks like 10 points maybe off the lows of the day. So not a positive sign. But let's zoom in. We'll go through the trades. There's not a lot of them today. It's real choppy, and these are hard days to trade, especially when it's not consistent. When I say consistent, the lows and the highs are not consistent. That makes it harder to trade. I mean, when we turn off these lows or off the highs straight down every time with a good bearish bar, those are easy. I mean, that's like a gimme almost. I love those kind of days. But when it's not consistent, I mean, early on, this range is consistent. Look at the lows bouncing every time, and look at the highs pretty much turning down every time where this midline is. But once it expanded, then it was a whole lot less predictable. So anyway, you had to be patient today too. 7 o'clock came just as you're making this high here, and you did have a break and a new high, and you turned down pretty much close to the highs there. There's a failure here, but it doesn't set up properly. I think that's too risky to take that. It would have been a nice trade, but it doesn't set up very well. I didn't mark this high or low. I was thinking about it, and it looks like I just forgot to mark it, but I should at least be green. It's a little bit, notice how big that bar is, and all of these are inside bars, every single one of them, until we finally broke higher, and it doesn't tick lower there or anything. Um, we were bouncing pretty consistently down here, though, and we are a long way away from the EMA, so I think you can argue for that to be green, and it's real close to being blue, but just because it's all those inside bars, and this actually not having a body, being a doji type bar. Let me zoom in a little more. You can see that bar, and every one of these are inside of it until you broke on up higher here. Well, that makes it a little iffy, but this is basically a double bottom. So notice you work up and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry that fails, and you also get a second entry long, and we're not quite back to the highs, and that's the first close outside. So I like that trade, just looking to make a new high. When it turned back down there, you could almost trade it as a failure, but a lot of times that just means you're going to be working sideways, and you'll get whipsawed, and in the end, that's what it turns out to be, just a range. And so once you didn't take that one, this one was iffy. It was real questionable, but there's not much room to that midline, and you can see it took a few times. So I just didn't like anything else here until it fails on the breakout, and look where it turns down. Same place. So that's a triple test. 1, 2, 3. And it's a failed breakout, a big bearish bar. You're way away from the EMA. That's what you want to see. There is a lower high here, and then a failure here. I mean, it's like a failed second entry, but it's right at the lows. You really could have this on down here. And so I think it's too dangerous going short there. And of course, you got this channel working down. You get a break and new low, and then it reverses. And this is one of those that maybe you catch the low of the day, which it turns out to be on a breakout, and you can see this is played out. I didn't color this one, but usually I'll make those down ones kind of a khaki color. And so you see the break and new low. that far away from the EMA, and you're probably going to get a failed break lower since we bounced so many times. Generally, you want to wait on a higher low. We never get one. The next higher low is way up here. That's too far to trade a higher low. And so you just kind of got to wait and see if maybe you get a reversal, and then you're just chopping sideways again. So I don't like anything there. This really looks like two legs back, but even if you consider that, say, okay, I'm going to treat that like a two legs back in the second entry. Well, this is your signal bar, and this is just an inside bar. You can't use it for a signal bar, so no trade there again. You do get another second entry long here, and I didn't mark this one, but let me explain this. At the time, the range was down here, and this looked like a breakout, and there's a big chance it could fail. So in that case, I don't like this trade. The way it sets up now, in the end, when you know the range is wider and this is the midline, then I'd probably take that trade. But with the information you had this morning, I don't think you can take that as a second entry long. So, so I think you just have to skip that. And now we're just kind of chopping sideways. It turns down. There is a higher low here, but it's right into the midline. That's probably a no. And then you're just kind of chopping sideways until you get a triple test here. Notice you try to go higher there once, twice, three times. Again, a little ways away from the EMA. Relatively bearish bar. I like that one just to ride it back to the, try to get a scalp out of it. Maybe you get more here. I doubt it. It probably comes back and takes your breakout out. But notice what happens. You come down, you get a first entry and then a second entry. So now you got a failure. And there's a little hidden second entry short right there as well. So I like going short. Just as long as you got room to get out here, you probably can take that trade with no problem. And this turns out to be the trade of the day at this point. Really, it runs all the way down, and you probably get a runner on that one. Of course, it bounces. You get a higher low. If this would have closed bullish, I wouldn't have had a problem going long there. I don't like trading that on the engulfing bar because a lot of times you'll come back and test this again. So I think it's risky. You want to get a good bullish bar, and you don't get that till here. And then you could argue too, hey, I got a triple test here, but you're going long right into resistance. So it's, again, it's just a little congested area. And so you don't want to go long there. And that's probably how I would draw that. I think that's too risky because you could get a failed breakout, which you do. It went enough that you could have scalped out, but you don't always know you're going to get enough room to scalp out, especially on a tight one like that. It does turn out to be a good move, but again, it's just not a trade you can take. And then you get your break, couple of moves, legs to a new high. There's a lower high here, which if you had a good signal bar, I'd say trade it. And then you could say, hey, you got a failure to go high twice there, triple test maybe. But it closes right here at the EMA, and it doesn't leave you much room. And you can see what happens, it bounces. But sometimes it can't get through there, and it bounces. But you end up testing this once, twice, three times, and this broke lower on that big bearish bar. That, I guarantee you, that trapped people. And you might even trade that one on the engulfing bar, especially as bearish as that is, because it sucked in a lot of shorts, I guarantee it. And but you could wait and go long right there because you still got plenty of room to those highs, and that turns out to be a great trade. It doesn't go real far, but it's a quick, easy scalp, and you probably could have got a couple of points runners out of it or so. And then we're just chopping sideways again. There's nothing here. Again, it's just kind of sideways. I don't see anything that I like there. It fails out. This one is tempting, but I'd wait on a higher low, which comes here, and then now you're back in the range again. So I don't think you can go long there. Turns out you get a little channel that runs up here to the highs. We really try to go higher three times there. 1, 2, 3. But this is your signal bar, and it's not bearish enough. Even though that's pretty bearish, it just doesn't set up properly. But it comes back, and then it tries to go lower twice there, and you still haven't made a new high here. So you're still looking for prices to attempt a new high maybe, and really you set the trend line here, and this kind of confirmed it, and So this one I went back and forth. I wanted to make it green, but I like this trade in real time. I mean, really what you're looking at is you got another little sideways range here. And so this is like a failed breakout, and prices are probably going to come back and test that just like they did here, and then you probably turn down, but then the trend line holds and confirms it. So then you got a failed second entry short, so I like going long there just to try to ride it up here to the highs. Instead, it just keeps going, so maybe you get a runner on this one and ride it up, ride it a good ways. It comes back to the trend line here, and again, it kind of looks like two legs back, but um, I don't know that I take that trade. It's a possibility. You probably could argue for it to be green. And of course, you keep working up, and you might argue it looks a little like a triple test, but the problem is here's your double top, and so it makes another double top just a little bit higher, and it looks just too congested. And we hadn't had a break of this trend line. We're still above the EMA. I mean, you could argue there's a triple test there, but if there's not enough room back to that trend line or in that EMA, you got to skip that one. It turns out it would have been a great trade. There's another failure here. You could argue there's another failed second entry long with a double top, but that's too congested. You see it fails, it comes back, and now you get a triple test. 1, 2, 3, and you got plenty of room back down to here. That's the one you want to take. And I draw my trend line there just to see what happens. And the next thing you know, we're working back. You actually have another little channel or range, and we get a failed breakout with two legs up, and it turns down right at the key entry point with a big bearish bar. So you don't know that it's going to take off like this. You're just looking for it to come back and maybe test this breakout area, and maybe if you're lucky, it keeps going. And that's exactly what happens. That's a great trade, late afternoon, great trade. And then that takes us into 2:30. There's another. Oops, I meant to go out, not in. I'm sorry, or go in, not out. But notice you get a first entry, second entry right here, but this is an inside bar, and that looks a little congested. So it's not a trade you can take, especially that late in the day. So that's kind of how I saw it. And this was not an easy day. I mean, there's some decent, easy trades in here, but overall, it's not an easy day because it's just a lot of inconsistencies and whiplashes and back and forth and just that kind of day. So, but anyway, hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a good trading day today, and hopefully we're off to a good week. We'll see. Again, I'm going to be limited on my time, so bear with me, and I'm going to try to do my usual stuff every day as much as I can. I'll be coming in the mornings and trading and for a couple of hours, but I'm not staying here the whole time. I'm having to leave during the middle of the day a lot, and then I'm coming back in the afternoon and doing this, and then leaving out again. So as early as I can. So just bear with me. I don't know how long this is going to last, but it's going to be a couple of weeks probably here at a minimum till we know more. But thanks again for the notes and emails and for just bearing with me through this process, and I appreciate it. But hope you had a great trading day. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.